We are so not prepared.
Professional.
Yeah. Professional amateur. On that note. Twinning!
Did you tap the side of your cameras?
Is that for good luck?
That's to knock off all the CO2 molecules. That keeps it from bubbling up, right? From fizzing out.
He's drinking on this show. Bad John.
Oh.
Oh, okay. And we're already having connection issues. So, let me disconnect from here. Are you freaking serious? Okay. Okay. We might be able to fix this. I'm just going to drop it down to like 240.
One of these streams will...
Alright, hang on, guys.
And it's went so smoothly the last few weeks.
Oh, okay. Alright. We're showing good health.
Everybody cross your fingers.
I'm just waiting a few seconds before I jinx myself here.
Everybody at home, get your salt once over the shoulder.
Yeah, right. Everybody get your rabbit's feet. We're going to need salt. We're going to need like...
Where's your wood? We need to do some knocking.
Yeah. All right, so it looked okay. We made the jump. And okay, I'm just going to rock with it while the getting's good. If we lose connect frames.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can make some changes here, like midstream. So I'm going to drop this down to that. And then this I'm going to put here. And let's see if we get rid of them ugly drop frames. All right. That honestly might be as good as it gets. So we're just going to roll with it. If the stream drops, it drops. But by golly, we're going to try. So how was your week, John?
Oh, it was all right. What did I do this weekend? I was lazy. I kept my pants in my drawer. Let's see. Oh, I'll tell you what. With all the talk last week about Super Metroid, I got the itch again, but I didn't have anywhere to play Super Metroid, so I did the next best thing, I guess, which was Axiom Verge. Played a little bit of that.
Yeah, I watched a speed run on that from the Games Done Quick this summer, and unfortunately, it like totally spoiled the ending for me. But yeah. I don't really care. It looks pretty awesome, though.
There is a plot to it, more so than you would have had in Super Metroid, which the whole story there is through atmosphere. But that being said, it's not necessarily a bad narrative. It's a convoluted one for sure. A lot of it's found actually within the items, the pickups, like the journal entries. A lot of the story is sort of hard to understand until you find those items. So it doesn't actually feed it to you. It's one of the interesting things about that game is that there's a lot, like for the puzzles, there's some actual coding. You have to, there's some cryptics, like you have a decoder, a screen that will allow you to figure out word symbols and translate the letters, and you might have to write down, for example, write down this, figure out through a decryption key journal you might pick up, figure out what a symbol means, the letter, and write the letters out to get the message, that kind of thing.
Drink more Ovaltine.
But as far as mechanics go, yeah, it feels like Metroid. It's a very fun game.
And from what I saw, like, it definitely pays tribute to, like, the first and not quite the first, but maybe the second Metroid as far as, like, visuals. It's not quite like Super Metroid, like, grade.
I'd say the first. I mean, it's gonna be better. I don't know. I was gonna argue Super Metroid. I don't know. I'd have to see a side by side screen comparison, but it's fine. The visuals are fine in terms of game feel. You know, having played it and thought about it, Super Metroid almost feels a little more guided, especially early on. It feels like the game's pretty well guiding the player where it wants to go. It's not till later where it really opens up and encourages and gives you the option for exploration. But just like Metroid, right out of the gate, this one has some open passageways, but obviously there's only one way you can go. So it's a lot of go forward, trial and error. Oh, this is the wrong way. I gotta go back, kind of thing.
I got you.
So it feels a little more like Metroid, but it does feel like Metroid. So if you like Metroid, there you go. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of weapons pickups and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did notice in the speed run, like, they didn't get near all the weapons, but like there was still a good bit of stuff they picked up. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna end up having to get that, especially where I've been playing Super Metroid now. Like,
it's definitely worth a look for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of Super Metroid, so I've been playing that, and I'm trying to do 100% run. And I was following this one guy's YouTube video, and I thought I followed it to a T, and I got to the point where you go up to the spaceship, and it, like, reloads all your ammunition. Well, I'm missing, like, 7 missile tanks and, like, 3 power bomb tanks. I had everything else, but I'm missing that. So now I've got to go through the entire map and, like, go by one and be like, okay, I got this, I got this, I got this. I did that a little bit during lunch today. Now I'm down to 1 missile tank. I only have 1 that I've got to find. It's going to be the biggest bear.
Have you at least cut out, you at least know a couple areas it definitely isn't?
Yeah. Like, 100% it's not in Norfair.
Okay.
It might be in Meridia or Brinstar.
Okay.
But the only thing is, though, like, Brinstar and Meridia are kind of like on opposite ends.
Yeah.
And there's only like 2 or 3 pathways you can go to either one. So, yeah, I've got a lot of backtracking in my future. But honestly, I really don't mind it too bad. Especially once you, like, pick up all the missiles and all the weapons and, like, mainly when you get screw attack, like, enemies aren't a problem.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, at this point, I could beat the game sweat.
Yeah.
Because Mother Brain, like, the last boss is, like, the easiest boss in the entire game. Like, like there's like one move she can do where it will really wreck you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you say that now. Have you ever played Mother? She's not particularly difficult, but there is a gradient curve. I mean,
yeah,
because like you said, you get caught once. I think 3 hits would pretty much take you out of it by that one attack. But once you get that far,
yeah, we'll see. But
and you got to be quick once you enter each panel of Torian, because each screen of it, because the Metroids are quick.
Yeah.
While as soon as you freeze them, you can quickly dispatch them. Sometimes, especially if you're not prepared for them to come at you.
Yeah.
Which is actually interesting because there's a lot of pieces in Super Metroid where it kind of flirts with a horror side to it, right? Mm-hmm. And it gets a bit unnerving when you go in, especially for the first time, because of the anxiety you feel from playing the game, which kind of transfers to the atmosphere of it too.
Yeah.
It's a fairly good way to convey horror, especially with the Super Nintendo, by using the mechanics and the anxiety of it. Since, visuals, you're only going to be able to do so much.
Yeah. And, like, I think the music in-game helps a lot because, where was it? It was, like, Fantoon is, like, the creepiest sounding boss ever. Like, when you shoot him and he makes that weird, like, screech noise, it's just like, ugh. But, like, yeah, I totally agree. Like, especially back in old school, like, retro gaming, they didn't have the visuals, so it's like they had to make up for it somehow.
Right.
But, yeah. Speaking of making up for it somehow, I honestly don't know how that segues. Because AMD released Threadripper 2, and that's going to make you think twice before buying enthusiast-grade Intel. Yeah. We saved it.
Saved it. Nailed it.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes, AMD has released Threadripper 2. If you're not familiar with it, about 2 years ago, AMD kind of really turned the table upside down when they released their Ryzen processors. They were honestly like pretty near dead. Like the only reason you would buy AMD is like if you had $200 in your pocket and you want to build a computer. Because their technology was just so outdated. Well, came out with Ryzen, really shook the game up, and offered stuff that appealed to not only gamers, but people who were into content creation. Really, they hit the market smack dab in the middle of being able to have the best of both worlds. Then they released Threadripper, which was like insane for its time. Intel only had a 10-core processor, and like that was like their $1,000+ flagship processor. And AMD released their 1950X for just right around $1,000, and they gave you 16 cores. And yeah, so needless to say, a lot of people went the Threadripper route, and then Intel kind of woke up and said, oh crap, we need to step up our game. And that's when they released like their 12, 14, and 16 core processors. And I think the highest they offer right now, and by looking at it, yes, is an 18 core.
Okay.
Now,
and when did you say that was that AMD first released the Threadripper?
It was right around 1.5 years, 2 years ago.
Okay.
I might be off by a few months, but I'm pretty sure it was right in that time frame. Because I feel like we got Pascal graphics cards, so like your GTX 1000 series. And then it was like 6 months later is when Ryzen started launching. And yeah, so they just released Threadripper 2. They offer currently 3 processors.
Okay.
Actually, 4. I can't count. So your 2920X and your 2950X, of course, are just a generational improvement on the 1920X and the 1950X.
Okay.
That's very traditional to see, like just like one number change.
Sure.
But what it looks like they've improved on is the clock speed itself, whereas the 1950X boosted to 4 gigahertz. So if it saw like, the processor isn't overheating, like Apple, it would boost itself up to the speed. Okay. Whereas now it's at 4.4. That's actually a pretty good improvement. And that's purely based off of manufacturing like perfections that they've made. Okay. They've gotten better at producing these chips. They can produce higher quality chips more often. Therefore, they're able to release these higher processors. Okay. But their two new ones are the 2970WX and the 2990WX. These are their flagship CPUs. You have starting out at 24 cores, 48 threads. That is like mind-blowing. Considering like 4 or 5 years ago, we were looking at like, 6 and 8 core processors and being like, how could you ever need more? And now it's just like they keep throwing cores on these things and we're like, how are we going to use all this? But so the 2970WX 48 total threads. So if you're doing something like a lot of Handbrake or 3DS, like 3D modeling and things like that, like animation, then that's going to use a lot of threads. Okay. So with that being said, I don't know what the pricing is for the lower end, but the 2990WX, which has 32 cores, is releasing at $1,800. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, holy crap. Like, who in their right mind would pay that much money for it? Like, you've got to keep in mind, this isn't for, like, me and you, sure, where, like, we're going to be buying this and then playing, like, Fortnite or PUBG. These are going to be, like, the top 5% of, like, the enthusiasts. They're, like, my EPEAN requires, like, the utmost core count. Okay. That and people who are running, like, virtual machines. They're going to be running, like I said, all these, like, daunting tasks. Quite honestly, I don't even know if Premiere would scale to the full, like, 32 cores. So you might, like, if that's the case, then you're just going to have, like, dead cores sitting there, like, twiddling their thumbs. But from what I saw, and this is from another YouTuber, Brian over... dang it. Brian over at Tech Yes City, he did some coverage. He actually went to the event where they talked about it. Under liquid nitrogen, they got this up to 4.9 gigahertz on all 32 cores. And a popular benchmark, Cinebench, they ran it and got over a 7,300 score. Like, that is insane. My system, which is a quad-core 8-thread, barely gets 1,000. Okay. So, like, that just kind of gives you a scale of, like, what to look at this as. And, hang on, let me check this stupid We got all the tech demons this week. What? So, what were you going to say?
I was... oh, man. I was going to ask you about... I mean, obviously, last week we had the talk about Intel and about how they seem to be dropping the ball a bit due to the delays and the issues with their... basically with their answer to AMD products. Well, one thing I was going to ask you too, so it's only a couple of years ago, so you told me that Intel got back to a place of market superiority and is, well, not necessarily market superiority, but they, are you telling me that they're once again dipping in Intel quality?
When Ryzen released, Intel has never lost market security to the fact where AMD is just decimating them.
Right.
That
if
was
anything,
never
brand name would keep them afloat anyway.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that look at AMD and don't choose their product based off of like everyone knows Intel. Like if you talk about Core i7, people are gonna know that more than Ryzen 7. Sure. It's kind of become a household name, and it's kind of a name that a lot of people have grown to trust over the years.
Right.
But yeah, they never got knocked off of the top.
But you said that, and you've suggested that because of the fact that they're so high up that they've become a bit lazy competitively.
Yes.
You had mentioned that they got a wake-up call when Ryzen first came out, the first threadripper there.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that this is, which is a couple of years ago, give or take, are you saying that this is another situation of that same caliber that, again, they've, even though they woke up and started trying to become competitive, again, get their competitive edge back, that over the last couple of years they've drifted again?
No. That's not what I meant at all.
Okay.
So basically, when Ryzen released, that got Intel back onto the drawing board and being like, okay, we actually need to innovate and come up with better ideas.
Okay.
And it wasn't long, we got the 8700K, like I said last week, which was 6-core, 12-thread on consumer-grade level. And core count and performance don't exactly scale.
Right.
So, like, the 8700K was actually, like, beating out the 1800X in a lot of different things, gaming being one of the biggest ones.
Okay.
AMD has a technology that they call the Infinity Fabric, and basically what that is where they have multiple CPUs on one die.
Okay.
This fabric is what helps them communicate with each other.
Okay.
So there's that little teeny tiny bit of latency in that Infinity Fabric, which is something we're going to be talking about later.
Sure.
But that little bit kind of edged them out in the gaming market because Intel was able to basically hit the ground running and come out with a faster CPU. And when it comes to games, faster is better.
Okay. Right.
Wow, I could really put my foot in my mouth on that one. So faster being instructions per clock, not gigahertz, not core speed.
Sure.
If it can work out more instructions, then it is a faster CPU because it can get more done.
Sure.
But anyway, so rabbit trail. But so with Threadripper 2 launching, there are no performance numbers out yet. It's still under embargo. I really can't wait to see what this means for the like prosumer and enthusiast market, because technology like this, high core count, can actually help out with what we're going to be talking about next, and which is cloud gaming. Now, to start with, earlier this week, it was announced that Gamefly was going to be stopping their cloud-based gaming streaming service. They're still going to offer their discs. They're going to be, of course, still doing game rentals that way.
Right.
But their streaming service itself is going to be ending August 31st, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so cloud-based gaming, that's something, it's old technology. It's been around for a while, but I don't think it was really until fiber internet became a thing where that actually started being a possibility. Because in places like where I live, my internet would never, it barely supports Netflix, let alone gaming. So to give you, in case you don't know, a little taste of what cloud-based gaming is. So think of it like you have a computer at your friend's house, but you can log onto your computer at home and still game off of that machine via the internet. That's what cloud-based gaming is. There are servers that are set up. You pay X amount of money per month, and you have access to a library of games. All these games are already installed on the server, so you don't have to worry about download times or anything like that. They're already running fairly modern hardware, so you should be getting good performance as far as like FPS and things like that. You just need like a machine to be able to connect to that and transfer the data to and fro. And that's because you're streaming it.
Server.
Yeah, like Netflix, you don't have a movie server in your house that you stream Netflix from. There is Plex, which you can do that, but for Netflix, you're streaming it. Basically, their servers are playing the movie, and the data is just coming to your screen. Same thing with cloud-based gaming. Now, there's a couple caveats with this, so probably the biggest of which is latency and lag. If you're playing like Fallout 4 and you're just roaming around like shooting stuff, even things like Borderlands, you're probably not going to notice that big of a difference. However, if you're playing like Counter-Strike or PUBG or Fortnite and you're competitive, like I know gamers that swear there is the biggest worlds of difference between 5 milliseconds of input latency and 1 millisecond. And like they will like their brain is just trained to be able to notice that. Now if you're gaming,
reaction time in a shooter is seconds at best.
Yeah, milliseconds.
Right. So you add the tiniest tweak and it gives that much of an advantage.
Yeah, like a friend of mine, like he swore that I use a Razer Death Adder at home, and he was like, "Oh man, you don't need that. You need to get that, and it has better input latency and blah blah blah." And I'm like, dude, like I'm not competitive. Like that's awesome you are, but like I'll never be on that level. Like, but yeah, so with cloud-based gaming, the data has to transfer to you and then back out from you back to the server to be able to, for the server to register, be like, oh, he walked through a doorway, I need to load this. So of course there's going to be like that span of time, and that costs you milliseconds. And if you're being competitive, I don't think cloud-based gaming will be your option. As great as a price point as it might be.
One of the other major potential issues with cloud gaming is the amount of bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, then that it would require to run.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was saying, like, probably wasn't until fiber came around that like people were really able to like cloud-based game. Not that you need like gigabits, like byte speeds to be able to do it. It's just people don't have top tier internet packages. So like most people in our area are still rocking like probably 15 down, 3 up, and that's like top mid grade. Unless you get like business class internet in this area, like you probably don't have the bandwidth to do like 1080 gaming like that. Yeah. Especially if they offer stuff like 4K. Sure. I don't even know how that would work. But another big thing is when that data is not coming to you raw. It's being compressed. And when you compress video, you lose quality. So there might be a little haziness. There might be like a little bit of fuzziness, especially on the edges. From what I was reading, that on top of the latency is like the biggest issue with it. So with that being said, probably... I totally lost my train of thought on that. I had a huge brain fart. So anyway, what I was saying... So basically with cloud-based gaming, you have to have the internet and you have to be willing to put up with a little latency.
Sure.
most modern gamers, that's probably fine. It wasn't until I was telling you 2 years ago, the most common screen resolution on Steam was 720p. And 4K was around and becoming cheaper. So nowadays, like 1080, people really don't care. Like they just want to log on and play their games.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, Gamefly is no longer going to be offering this. And the technology and people associated with building up that service were purchased by EA.
So although Gamefly is no longer offering, EA is obviously working up to offer their own streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not alone, right? I mean...
No, apparently Origin and Activision both are looking into getting into cloud-based gaming.
I know that Sony has a streaming service for their PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Nvidia has a cloud gaming
Yeah.
service.
And what was really cool was you even had like cloud gaming at home. You could purchase what was called a Nvidia Shield. They might still sell them. I have no idea. But basically it was like a tablet, and you would stream your game off of your gaming computer onto it.
Okay.
So like if you had to leave the room or whatever and you want to bring your game with you, if you were still connected to your network, you could play on your tablet. Which was pretty cool idea, especially for like maybe people like parents where they have kids and they can't like be sitting in front of a screen, like headphones on, like hands occupied by mouse and keyboard. I could totally see where that would be a really good thing to have, to be able to just like put down the moment's notice.
Sure.
But yeah, so Sony, Origin, Activision, this is actually becoming like a little more relevant than I thought it was.
Liquid Sky out of New York City. There's a few of them, but it's obviously cloud gaming isn't to the degree that it would need to be really revolutionize the market. That's really overtaking the market. I mean, obviously, digital downloads are bigger than they ever were.
Yeah.
But even so, I don't know the stats on that. I don't know how many people, especially those that would use consoles rather than PC. I don't know how many of those folks are picking up physical media as compared to downloading digitally through the store.
I know a lot of people that are switching to digital just because like you don't have to keep up with your discs, like they don't get scratched. The only thing that kind of sucks about that is like I don't know, like I've always liked being able to hold it in my hand.
There's something
like,
of both a feeling of satisfaction of having it, but also a sense of security of being able to have it in your hands. You can't magically lose your digital content if
like the biggest thing you have to worry about is if your account gets hacked. But
right.
But yeah, so and we were talking about this, like we're the last of a dying age. Like we were the last like generation before the internet. So like we have knowledge of there being no internet, and then when everything first started up and becoming digital.
Yeah. We both grew up in a time with the internet and without.
Yeah.
With Google and without Google.
We're digital and analog. And probably the last few people that can read an analog clock.
Hell, excuse me. YouTube didn't even come into play until 2005, I think.
Yeah. Shoot, we were in like 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
Not to make anyone feel old or anything. Like we're not saying we're old by any means. We're just saying we're like in that time frame.
I'm as old as I am. I don't.
Yeah,
Age is a number.
I'm numbers years old. That's how old I am. But
you're right. We would have been almost moving our way into high school. By the time YouTube even came about.
Yeah, like I remember watching Flash videos off of albinoblacksheep.com and like all these old websites. Oh man.
So it is interesting.
Those were the days.
Because the folks before us have always known physical media, and even the folks after us, 2000s plus. I mean, you still know what a CD is. There's still plenty. Yeah. There's still plenty of people that run. I mean, they still sell, PS4, Xbox One discs. I mean, physical media is not dead, but digital media is definitely alive, and it's arguably becoming more predominant than.
And I don't know what it is like.
And quickly. That's the main thing. It's happened so quickly. That's kind of the point. I mean, 20 years ago, this wasn't the case. All of a sudden, digital media is more the way than...
Yeah, totally. And I don't know what it is, but, like, I'll buy digital download games on Steam. And, like, it's exciting. Like, I can't wait to go home and play it. But, like, having that memory as a kid, like, the car ride home from the store, you're, like, holding the box that it comes in. You, like, open it. You're reading the instruction manual. And, like, to me, I get so much enjoyment out of that. And I don't know if it's just, like, where it's a childhood memory. But, like, I personally got more excited about buying Pokemon Red on Game Boy Color than I did when Doom released on PC. Just because, like, it was in my hands. I was like, oh, there's so many memories. Like, oh, man. But, like, could that be because, like, I had never played Doom before? Or, like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, for one, getting older kills your childhood. But for two, I would argue, there is anticipation in the sense, too, that it's just physical media. I remember being in the community college there.
Back in my day.
I remember even when I was in college and I went to the GameStop and picked up Infamous for the first time. I didn't know anything about it, and just looking at the case and the anticipation feeling from before I would pop it in, I was excited to play it. And I mean, most of the time, if you download something off of Steam, you just play it immediately. I mean, I suppose maybe you download it for later, but even so, that means it's in the back of your mind while this is downloading, so that you can efficiently come to this later. You're doing something else. You're not waiting and excited with anticipation to play it.
And like even stuff like even when I buy old games, like even if it's not for me, I get excited about it. Like here recently, I picked up like Sonic Pinball on the Genesis for my wife, and like I was so excited. I was like, oh man, I got this for a good deal. Look at this, honey. And she was like, cool. It's just, I don't know, I guess it is a lot of nostalgia to it, but
it definitely is.
I do like physical media because like even going on YouTube and watching like people's game rooms where they have like walls of games and posters and figurines and stuff, and you're like nerding out thinking, oh man, that would be so awesome. Like you don't have that with digital. Like yeah, you could buy like action figures and stuff, but then like you just look like a regular nerd. But no offense to anyone who like
let's alienate our one viewer.
Yeah, yes, one viewer. I hope you do not collect action figures. At least I didn't call them dolls. But they're action figures, Mom.
Apologies.
I should stop. But yeah, so like just that, I do like having physical media.
Do you Kindle it, or if you feel the urge to read, you gotta go paper?
I can't read. I'm just kidding. They didn't teach that in my high school.
I didn't know. I'm sorry.
But they did teach us how to artificially inseminate a cow. I'm not sure how that works, but no. I do know how to read. I can spell my name and I can read it. But honestly, like I'm not that big of a reader. Honestly,
I'm sorry. I write all the prompts. He doesn't.
Yeah, he writes everything. He actually like reads it to me before bed. But honestly, I don't read that much to like know if I would prefer digital. like I'm sure the convenience of just like
Yeah.
picking up your Kindle and going would be fine, but like I don't know. Again,
you never,
the texture of like paper and things like that.
I know for sure you're not a comic book enthusiast. You ever look through comic books at all?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But if you do, are you going to do it online, or does it make a difference to you? Because that's enough to be an indicator for you.
I read all of Walking Dead comics at the time, digitally.
Oh yeah.
Now,
is it the same? I mean,
I don't know. Like my interest.
So maybe it's not universal for you. Maybe it doesn't run over everything. Maybe it's just that over time, as physical media becomes less prevalent and as digital media is clearly the form that's most consumed, maybe you just adapt to it.
I would totally say that it's subject to whatever it is, because this past weekend or the weekend before, my wife and I were cleaning out the fun room, and she found a whole bunch of old CDs, and she's like, "Oh man, there's like all these CDs. Do you want any of this music?" And I'm like, CDs, throw it away. So yeah, I would totally say it's probably just gaming then. But
we've uncovered a mystery.
Yeah. We have uncovered that I am biased. No.
Sherlocking it up in here.
This feels like therapy. I'm learning things about myself I wasn't aware of.
And how does that make you feel, Kirsten?
Dirty.
Okay, well, obviously we rabbit trailed a little bit. I got a question about cloud gaming for you.
Shoot.
So while we're on the subject of how entering the future with gaming, definitely that would be a bar against it, potentially, is the fact that needing so much bandwidth. Obviously it's an online deal. I mean, that's a good point too, I suppose, right now, is that obviously, well, no, that's not true. I mean, I this is another thing I'm not certain about. I don't know how much people get into online gaming. I know as being a part of a console, mostly how I access games. I haven't picked up PSN since it went over, since the PlayStation 4 came out, and since the PSN picked up a price, since the Plus membership is all you could pick up. I've never been a part of the Xbox community, so I've never had to always pay for Xbox Live. So,
which is why you should go PC. I'm just kidding, everybody. Play your games on whatever it is you like to play them on.
This guy's an elitist. They
like, I love PC just for the versatility. Not to get on another rabbit trail. I don't want to distract from what you were asking, but like
it's coming piecemeal. I can feel it. Yeah. This question, so it's fine. Rabbit trail.
Yeah. So like,
here's your carrots.
My viewpoint is like, I love PC gaming. Like, I love having the same hardware for years and years and being able to play modern games, just by being able to drop settings down on the visuals. Like, to me, frame rate is so much more important than actual like resolution and clarity of the image, because it can look as awesome as it wants, but if it plays like crap, then I'm not going to enjoy it.
Sure.
But I like the versatility of PC. I like having one machine that I can game on, that I can edit my videos on, that I can browse the web and buy computer parts on.
The accessibility of it, emulation will cover much of what
if you're
physical
emulating
media can't anymore.
Homebrew games that you have the rights to play.
I thought it was implied.
But yeah, so like, honestly, it comes down to like, if you're having fun with it, like if you hate consoles after like the N64, then play N64 and below. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, have fun. That's the point of it. I hate when people are like, "Oh my God, you're a dirty console." Like, I'll joke with people about it, but like, I'm not serious. I still go back and play my Super Nintendo. I still go back and play my Xbox 360 because, like, Forza 4 was my jam, as well as like Halo 2 and 3 and all of that. But yeah, so that's my rabbit trail. Like, play your games and love it. That's the reason we play games.
Well, and while you're putting that, I mean, actually continuing on the same question, I mean, that is more or less where I'm going to, is because cloud gaming is about convenience. It's about the ability to bypass the need for specific consoles or for and that's the idea of streaming, which is very much comparative to PC's ideologies and such. And in theory, I don't know. See, that's part of the point too, is that I'm not quite sure. I mean, I definitely play consoles, and again, maybe it's just a love for the physical medium. But consoles may be, in a sense, somewhat obsolete. I suppose they are gaming hardware, right?
Yeah.
That's what would potentially give you the ups over, but PCs can and be equally, maybe even more so, tuned to gaming. Would you argue that
PCs will absolutely decimate console as far as graphics horsepower. I believe it was PlayStation 4. No, it was Xbox One X, or whichever of the 40 Xbox Ones they came out with. They advertised that it was 4K capable and that it was running at 60 frames per second. That wasn't the case. At that same time period, 60 frames per second at true 4K, not upscaled 1080.
Sure.
True 4K was still hard on like $1,500 to like $1,800 like gaming PCs. They still run a CPU and an onboard like GPU for graphics.
Okay.
However, it's just not gonna, like, you're not gonna be able to take like a GTX 1080 and then an Xbox One X and be like they're identical, because they really aren't. That's why usually PC games just generally look better, is because you can run those dedicated cards and you can get way, way, way more powerful cards than what consoles can offer.
Would you say that? I'm trying to think, because I can't help it. I like to console game.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. And maybe it's the convenience of it, as someone who doesn't fully understand software and the hardware. Maybe it's just simpler to run on a console. I don't need to know too much about my system in order to make it work for myself.
Yeah, and like that's probably like the biggest appeal to
is the user
gaming. It's just like you just turn on your PlayStation and play it. Like sometimes PCs just give you a fit. Like earlier I started up the streaming PC and like one of the screens wouldn't work, so I had to sit there and do like some basic diagnostic, and then finally I got it to work. Console, you just turn it on. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it just doesn't work. So yeah, that probably is like
and that's biggest... the limiting nature of it too. If it doesn't work, then you're in you're stuck. But that being said, to make it work is simple.
Yeah, it's a lot more simple. That, and it's over time, it's cheaper to go PC.
Yeah.
But starting out, like, if you're only going to play, like, 1 or 2 series of games, then, like, console would totally appeal to you. But if you're going to buy, like, the latest and greatest every single time it comes out, then, honestly, I would recommend PC just for the fact that, like, games go on sale more often. A lot of times, like, third-party places, like Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle's the reason I've got, like, 90 games and I play 5. Like, but I got those 5 games cheap. But yeah, so like console is just so appealing in that aspect. Yeah, just like pick it up and run.
Yeah. I guess right now, what I'm thinking about is towards the future, will there be a shift? Will there be fewer and fewer console players? Will PC be the majority of gamers? And it does make me think that, well, maybe not 100% across the board. Casual gamers, which are becoming a huge portion of those who play video games, are gonna mostly be gaming through their phones.
Yeah, I mean with stuff like Fortnite coming out and things like that on mobile, yeah, I could totally see a shift in the market there.
And I suppose streaming could still be applicable in that nature too. I guess what I wonder is if one of the major barriers for well, who knows what will come of cloud gaming, how much that will end up taking over the video game landscape as we go forward into the future. But I wonder if one of the major obstacles for it, one of the major deciders, will be how connected people are to console, how much we still console game in the future relative to simply utilizing one device, such as a PC, which does seem to be kind of the focus with the later years, hasn't it? To put everything into one location.
Yeah. Now,
even your Xbox One and your PS4 are a DVD player and all of your entertainment in one location.
I know plenty of people.
They funnel your streaming services straight through, right?
I know plenty of people that have a PS3 as a Blu-ray player.
Right.
But I think honestly, like the biggest thing that's going to combat that is where internet service providers are putting data caps on stuff, because gaming will eat up that data.
Yes, it will.
Like if you're, even though it's compressed and even if you're able to stream it, like you're still going to be using data.
Right.
And it may not be as bad at like 720p or 1080, but if you have, I don't know, 300 gigs of data a month, I don't know what these ISPs are putting on their service packages, but if you're streaming 1080p at 60 frames per second every single day for like an hour, 2 hours even, like you're probably going to eat up that data. And and then that's just going to cost you more. I think honestly that's probably going to be the biggest deciding factor in the future outcome of cloud gaming. That and just people having access to internet that would even support it.
Sure.
Especially if they offer, like I really don't know how they would offer it in 4K. I mean, you would have to have fiber, because I don't think copper internet could run that.
Well, here's something we were talking about earlier, though, right? I mean, maybe it's cyclical, like many things, in that eventually people will go to a public place, a local spot where all of the gaming there is local and it's streamed from a server, and that something, I don't know, in a sense like an arcade
or maybe an internet cafe.
In theory, maybe as it often goes with evolving both in technology and culture, maybe moving forward will look a lot like moving backwards in some senses.
Yeah, and like gaming online is fun, but like a local group that I'm a part of on Facebook, they, for a couple years, they had a LAN party, and like LAN parties are just so much fun. Like, one year I spent the entire time like troubleshooting my computer because it wouldn't like play a game right. But still being in the same room with people with the same passion as you, like that, it's just awesome. So like I would love if they offered something like an internet cafe. You go in, you pay X amount per month, and you could go on and just play games and like meet up with your buddies there, have like little miniature LAN parties, I would buy that subscription. Like, I have a gaming computer at home, but that would make me like spend actual time with friends, like in the same room. Like, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Like, that would be so much fun.
It would make you to be honest though. I mean, much of the other technology we have isn't pushing towards that way.
Yeah.
Social media does not inspire face-to-face get-togethers.
Not at all.
And the convenience of doing everything from, I mean, shopping on, everything. Finding dates online is...
You don't have to be lonely.
My goodness. But it just, that convenience just seems to overtake everything else. But again, who knows? I mean, maybe culture will shift around a little bit in that way. It is just interesting. I mean, there is a difference, though, isn't it? And it does kind of go back to that. We grew up in a time where getting together to play games with friends meant going to each other's houses. It took a while for, well, maybe not. Arguably not really, relatively not really, but for internet to enter into gaming.
Yeah, like I remember growing up, like going over to your house, like we would sit there and play like Sly Cooper and like I do miss that, like being in the same room as your friends. Like I'm the kind of guy where like I don't even have to be playing the game, like I could just be watching and like just getting into it and like get those tense moments, like the room gets quiet and then somebody pulls off some kind of crazy move and you're like, ah! Like that's the kind of stuff I missed. And like LAN parties, you get that. Like there's nothing like I said, being in a room where everyone's into the same stuff you are, and then like if you beat them at something and they get like all riled up, like that's a pretty good feeling. Like you snipe someone out from across the room and like you hear, what SOB did that? Like it's like, yeah, that was me. Which never happens to me, but one can dream. But no, like in all seriousness, like that would be really, really cool to see. And
I didn't notice. I mean, I didn't notice this until we started doing our get-togethers again with our friends there. And so I was looking for games that we could potentially play together. Local death matches, in your FPSs are almost obsolete.
Yeah, what's that? Local?
I think your latest Call of Duty will have it, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find it anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were a lot of games I swore had split screen, and like I got to looking and I was like, no, it's online multiplayer. Like it even says like multiplayer in the thing, but you like launched a game and you're like, oh, there's no split screen. But yeah.
Can I ask you a question related back to cloud gaming one more time?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I have permission.
I'm sorry, folks. Here's your warning. So you'd mentioned kind of before that so NVIDIA offers the Shield so that you can actually use their service on their equipment. Potentially, is that a way that streaming services, the more and more prevalent they become, the companies that offer the services might get around the issues for their consumers for competitive play? Would there be some sort of technology that maybe they would be able to offer, which I know seems kind of like a backtrack because that's like buying a PC or a console, but would they be able to potentially offer something that would allow the fullest usage of their service, something to better the latency?
would cloud gaming be able to offer?
With the companies that are providing the cloud gaming service, would they also potentially be able to provide consumers with tech that would enable a better application of their service, better performance of their service?
So the way I see that is
A quicker access to the...
kind of like how Amazon has their Fire Stick.
Okay.
Roku has their own thing. I could totally see where cloud like EA or maybe not the publisher, but I could totally see where a streaming service would offer like maybe one of those little Intel Nook like machines. They're tiny. They're still like crazy expensive, but that's still like a 64-bit operating system. Like I could see where they would sell one of those, but I don't know if they could offer anything on like a 64-bit system. I honestly don't know. I wonder if the NVIDIA Shield is 64-bit or if it's like Android or something. Let me look at here. I've got it pulled up. Let's see.
I mean, the Shield doesn't...
It says, which apparently the Shield is no longer a tablet. It is like its own little tower.
I see.
I'm almost
so
willing
the Shield
to...
doesn't connect to the server any more than you'd be able to connect to the server without it.
I see. It says Android TV. So yeah, it's just running like an Android-based operating system where you probably just stream through an app.
Okay.
Kind of like Netflix. That's different. But yeah, so honestly, I to answer your question, I'm not really sure like how they would do that. I don't know if they could do it via an application like that, or if you would have to have like an actual machine with like Windows to be able to operate it. I honestly don't know.
Would ultimately defeat the purpose of streaming?
No, not necessarily, because
you still have access to their library.
Yeah, you would have access to the library, and you would
on that server.
You would still be able to game on like gaming hardware, but if you have like a laptop that can't game or something like that, maybe I could totally see where a college student would be totally down for cloud gaming. So you have your laptop, you're a poor college student, so of course you're not going to have like an Asus ROG laptop where it has a dedicated video card. Maybe you just bought like the little Toshiba. I could see where you would pay $20 a month, and from that Toshiba you would be able to connect through the internet to the cloud gaming server and be able to play. So you wouldn't have to have a gaming computer to do cloud gaming.
Yeah, okay.
Just as like, I mean, you don't have to have a crazy like home entertainment setup to be able to stream 4K Netflix. Sure. So, yeah.
You know, you had mentioned earlier when you were talking about the new AMD chip there, you had mentioned that something about multiple...
I like what you did there.
You had mentioned, if I remember right, multiple CPUs in the same die that would enhance latency, something along these lines?
So, no, not that it would enhance latency and the fact that it would make it better.
Enhance latency issues, right? Slowdown, right?
Threadripper got a lot of crap when they came out because Intel released a statement saying like they glued CPUs together. Intel did the exact same thing with the Core 2 Quad. I don't know why they said that. But so basically you have on Threadripper multiple I don't think it's actual dies. I think it's all one die, but you
Right.
have multiple
The
CPUs
same die, right?
on the same chip. So in Threadripper 1, you had 4 of them. 2 of them were dead, but 2 of them you had an 8 core and an 8 core for the 16 core.
Okay.
Whereas 32, now you probably have 8, 8, 8, and 8. So all 4 of them are active now. But what I was talking about earlier, where this might apply, is you could totally, through virtualization or setting up virtual machines, have 1 or 2 of these machines and be able to run multiple gaming systems off of it. Basically, if you could connect, like, even if you just split that 132 core CPU into 8 quad cores and have a dedicated GPU for each one of them, through software, you could totally game off of one system but have multiple people.
Okay. So maybe the answer to reducing latency is through this process.
No. No. I don't think that would help at all in this case. I think, honestly, it's the distance from the server. So if you're close to the server, your latency will be better than if you're further away. Same thing, if you go bowling and you throw a bowling ball down a 15-meter bowling alley and then throw one at the same speed down a 5-meter, obviously the shorter distance is going to get there first. Same difference. So if you're close to the server, you're going to probably have a little bit better experience than if you were further away. But I think that's probably the biggest part of it. But if they came out with multiple, like, centers spread throughout the country, even then I don't think you could get on a competitive level of cloud-based gaming. I just don't think the tech is quite there yet. Which, being the case, you had mentioned earlier that Gamefly selling this technology. Maybe it was an instance of they're sitting on it, they're not really making money off of it. EA's like, hey, we would totally love to be able to dabble in this. I could see where EA, being a much bigger company,
make people hate us less.
We're going to release Battlefield 3, and it's going to have all the paid, like, loot boxes for better... I don't know. But, yeah, I could see where EA is saying we have better funding. Like, let's see how far we can take this technology.
Sure.
Because I've always had the thought process, it takes a genius to come up with an idea. It takes another genius to perfect it. Like the cell phones when they first came out compared to now, they're nowhere near perfect, but compared to what they were, several people have had their hands in it. So, like, over time, cloud-based gaming could probably become like, oh, why do you have your own computer? Like, why don't you just do this?
Like, I can't help but think that I grew up without a cell phone, and I also grew up with one.
We're getting old, John. My dad...
I'm stuck in a paradox of aging and never aging.
My dad, still to this day, has one of those old school Nokia phones. And, like, his whole thought process is like, I've already paid so much money for minutes, I might as well keep it. And it's just, like... Even the people, when because he's traditional, he goes in the store to, like, pay his bill. The people are like, what phone do you have? It's like, they still put service on that? But,
anyway, yeah. So well, here's my last cloud gaming question, by the way. Although this question is going to come out a little... I'm just speculating. Okay, starting with this, I would say that I guess I technically have cable TV, but I really don't use cable anymore.
yeah.
Netflix and Hulu take me pretty much anywhere I want to go. YouTube patches out the rest. And I would say that that's an obvious, well, not necessarily obviously, but I would argue that's not a common trend. That this obviously Netflix is really overtaking, is really becoming competitive with cable. And in the same way, if cloud gaming were to reach that level to the point where many people were thinking, I really don't need all these devices. I just need this one, and I'll just stream and pick and select what I wonder how that landscape in terms of publishers and in terms of how that setup would have to work, considering how much of a web work it is now with publishers and with your various
because like you have Steam, and then you have Origin, and you have Blizzard, and
right, you got Microsoft and Sony, which will both publish on a game, as well as other publishers that made the game, and potentially more publishers on top. There's developers and development teams, but there's also publishers that come up underneath. And I wonder with something like cloud gaming, where with arguably if it wasn't, I mean, Sony has their own cloud gaming network, but if it was more common that say EA or so had was the one with the streaming service, I suppose, unless they went through licensing policies, the only access would be to their games. With something like Netflix, maybe you don't have, maybe Hulu has some of the TV shows you want to see and you can't see them on Netflix. And maybe there are movies that you would rather pick up on Netflix, but Hulu will just have to do. You can make do with that. It's arguably potentially a little different with gaming, and especially if it gets split up into so many sections. I mean, you have Hulu and you have Netflix, and sure, there are other streaming services, but these two are fairly prominent. And again, there are some more, but you know what I mean. But with something like that, if a bunch of am I making myself clear enough? If a bunch of publishers came in, if EA and Activision and all these, if I don't know,
I got what you're
Bethesda,
saying.
Naughty
So,
Dog,
like,
for examples, if it's 6, if it's a handful, if it's even more than just a couple, it's too much competition. I don't know if that would work well.
Yeah, so like essentially I think it would look a lot like kind of video streaming and gaming is now on the PC platform, where you have Netflix, you have Hulu, and then of course like what is it, TNT, ABC, all of them, they have their own streaming services where I think there is the potential to get a lot of the same content on multiple platforms, but you're still going to have exclusives. So like you can't play Battlefield 1 on Steam.
Right. Okay.
You can't play World of Warcraft on Steam. You have to go to their respective place to be able to play that. Just like you can play Grand Theft Auto 5 on Steam, and you could play it on the Rockstar like gaming platform thing they have. But I think it would still look a lot like that, because there's gonna be exclusives that companies just don't want to release rights to.
I guess what I'm arguing though is if there's six different companies that 6 different publishing companies that have picked up their own streaming service, like in the likes of EA and Activision. Sure, they'll each have their own exclusives, but that's a lot of exclusives to end up to buy. It'll
Dang it. I'm like trying to fix my hair, and I'm like, okay, nope, wrong way. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
It seems like it would be a higher split of games. Yeah. I mean, with Netflix, you still have plenty of access to plenty of shows that are even split across other networks, and that it's not like, I mean, there are other competitors. There's Amazon Prime and Crackle, but they're not so split and pared down to where you can only have access to a couple of the movies or shows you really want, but you have to have 5 other services to get all those movies and shows. But if publishing companies are the ones that end up picking up their own servers, if that's how it works, that you can only have access to their games exclusively through those publishing companies, then you're going to have 5 or 6 subscriptions to get them all. Yeah. And that's just not going to work for the consumer. No one's going to do that, which means that that's just not the kind of that gaming will not develop in that way if that were the case.
Yeah, and with like the multiple platforms now, like Origin, Steam, Blizzard, all of that, Battle.net, they don't cost you money per month. So I don't mind just logging into a different place to be able to play my games. I know for a fact that I would choose not to play certain titles because they're on this platform. I'm not paying $15 more a month. Because I think when these services launch, especially for like probably the first 5 years, I don't see them being like under $20 a month. I really don't. Just because there's going to have to be some like high grade hardware.
Yeah. And
of course, like there's going to be a lot of startup cost, all of that for the server, for the streaming companies. So honestly, until they reach that point where like they've hit their return on investment and they're making money, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like $30 a month. And I'm sure the maintenance is probably going to be a lot higher on a dedicated like gaming server than a video streaming server that's just basically taking this file and playing it, compressing it, and sending it. Whereas this, it's like you have video cards, you have really, really, really expensive CPUs, because I'm sure they're going to do this on that virtual platform like I was talking about. Because I can't imagine running like a dedicated server for each and every person. That's probably how they would have to do it. But yeah, again, this is all speculation. I'm by no means an IT expert. I just run a YouTube channel where I talk about things I like. But
I just talk. I'm just talking.
I don't even know what I'm saying. Oh, man.
You don't have to know what you're talking about to theorize.
Start our own like conspiracy theory channel on how like the man is just trying to gather all of our information.
Now, I'm not saying that the president's a reptilian, but
I mean, have you? I'm just saying that like he looked like he had scales here. What's hiding under the toupee? I mean,
that South Park episode.
Yeah.
Is the president a reptilian? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Oh Lord. But with that being said, we're approaching an hour and a half.
Yeah.
This has definitely been a
productive stream, I think.
Yeah.
While being mostly
given all of our tech trouble we had at the beginning of it. But yeah, so I don't know who the one viewer is that's like watched this entire time, but like you're awesome.
Thanks for hanging in there.
You're awesome. You hung in here through tech trouble and all sorts of stuff.
We appreciate you.
We do. You're our number one fan. But with that being said,
we're your number one fans. I can't speak for Curtis. I'm your number one fan.
I'm my own fan. But
I'm my own.
with that being said, I think it's time to bring this stream to a close. We're both tired. We're both just like rambling at this point.
I gotta go to bed now.
I gotta go home and do stuff with things and housekeeping. But anyway, so thank you for watching the stream, everybody. Hopefully this is somewhat entertaining. Be sure to, if you're catching this when it's not live, be sure to hit that like button or that dislike button if you disliked it. Be sure to leave comments down below. Like, let us know your thoughts on these topics and what you all think. Also, don't forget about the 100 subscriber giveaway I'm going to be doing on the channel. Once we hit 100 subs, I'm going to be giving away some stuff of unimaginable value. Actually, it's going to be pretty cool. But you don't want to miss that, so be sure to share it with your friends and family. And also, don't forget to tune in next Tuesday, where we are going to have even better topics than this week. And the stream's just going to get better from here. But, fingers crossed. But, so...
Playing a dangerous game, friend.
Yeah.
It's never going to fail on us ever again.
Don't forget to subscribe and do the normal YouTube stuff. Also, be sure to turn on notifications. YouTube messed up again, and nobody's getting notified. So be sure that you should be getting notifications.
This YouTube.
Yes, it's YouTube's fault. It's always YouTube's fault. So yeah, we'll see you all next week's.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.